We're going to start tonight's meeting with our treasurer's report from our treasurer, Jamie Hedstrom.
Okay, so tonight we're looking at the budget through June 30th of 2018. The financials currently present a net budget surplus of approximately $550,000. This is a little bit higher than what we were looking at the last couple of months. But looking at the line items, I think it's really just a timing issue. The items that are really generating this is our CERT line. We're about $74,000 under budget. Our fire equipment and capital outlay is about $102,000 under, and our workers' comp is also about $100,000 under. As it relates to the certs, we did just receive notification of a pending settlement for one cert that it alone is about $100,000. So if the timing of that could hit, it could be this year, it could be next year. But if that does hit, obviously it's going to take a big chunk of that budget. And then our workers' comp, we discussed, we paid it, approved it and paid it at last month's meeting. It did come in significantly lower than what we expected because we had a very favorable experience modification factor. However, any day now we're going to be receiving our audit assessment from last year, and we do expect to have a larger assessment because during that period of time we paid our retro, and that impacts our PERMA bill because it's based on our salaries. So we'll see that in the next month's meeting. Last month we talked about budget transfers that were approved. I've made the budget transfers that we discussed. One of the items that we talked about was the overtime, and we had requested a $125,000 transfer, which we did make. We had prepared an analysis to come up with that number, and as we stated at last month's meeting, it did not take into consideration potential long-term absences. And I think, between last month's meeting and this month's meeting, we unfortunately have had 5 long-term absences that were unexpected, 1 captain, 1 lieutenant, and 3 firefighters. So that will, as we said, have an impact on the overtime. So we've done an additional analysis to get us through what we know right now as what we can anticipate for those long-term absences, taking into consideration the current staffing, the current schedule that we have in place for the summer with vacations and float days, to get us through. And we've estimated that these absences that we have starting since last month's meeting will require at least another $155,000 in overtime to cover those positions running at full staff. And like I said, the one thing about doing that analysis was we did not include long-term absences. It does allow us to at least keep the board updated in real time. Unfortunately, we got an example right off the bat. But that's where we are. So obviously, I'll continue to track that and let the board know. So I'm not necessarily requesting the budget transfer for tonight's meeting. I do just want to let you know that that is what we anticipate.
Okay.
And that's all the good news I have for tonight.
Thank you, Jamie. I think this, I'd like to open up a brief discussion just on what Jamie just touched on, which is the need for additional funding of our overtime budget if the board chooses to do so. Some of the overtime budget is being used because the department made a decision to run short firefighters. So instead of actually hiring new firefighters in, we paid overtime to have people work time and a half, effectively under the concept that there was some savings, so we didn't have to offer these people medical benefits. That line of thinking has changed, and the board now has made a decision that going forward, we're going to try to keep the department fully staffed. We recently hired several new firefighters. They'll be coming online, I believe, in August. We are actively looking to fill 2 probationary firefighter positions that are currently available. So the balance of the overtime budget, that's caused by sick calls, sick rates. And our sick rates, since I've been on the board, at times have been extraordinarily high. Last year, and when I talk about sick rates, I'm talking about non-line of duty sick rate. So if someone's injured on the job, they're backed out. These are injuries, some of them are long-term, some are short-term, some, somebody twists their ankle playing football while they're not on the job, that's still considered a non-line of duty injury. Someone has a stomach ache, whatever it is. In 2017, the sick rate for the department was 6.18%. Just for comparison, if you looked at the city of New York in 2016, which was the only year I was able to get the information for, the non-line of duty sick rate was 2.4%. So far in 2018, we're running at 7.25%. These rates, this incident of sick calls is not sustainable. The cost is significant. It represents almost 10% this year of what we're paying for salaries. Now, there's a number of reasons that I attribute to these high sick rates. I think in some cases we've had a string of bad luck. We have a relatively small department, so a few freak injuries can kind of have an impact. But I think that there's more going on here than just that, given the fact that these numbers have remained high over time. I think the age of the department has something to do with it as well. We are a slightly older department, and as you can go online and Google, but the incidence of injury is higher the older you get. And the average age, like I said, we have a number of firefighters in their 50s and 60s, and I think that contributes to part of it. And I also think that there's some abuse that goes on. It would be naive to believe that there isn't some abuse of our sick leave policies. So it leaves us with two issues to consider and that we're going to have to deal with. And one is longer term, which is how to bring these rates down. What steps can the board take to meaningfully reduce the sick rates that we have? And I think we've discussed this amongst ourselves, and we think there are a number of levers we can pull and that we're going to explore. But these are not quick fixes. They're things that are going to take a while to implement, and it's not going to immediately reduce these numbers. The second major thing to consider is, how do we manage the financial impact of this? As I said, these numbers are in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. $500,000 more than what would be expected if we had a sick rate that was, approximated the average of what I believe departments of similar size are experiencing. So the board is taking this very seriously and is going to, think hard about exactly how we're going to handle the request for this additional funding. Just because this is not a bottomless pit. We do not have the money to continue to throw at this problem this way. And it may result at some point in some difficult decisions being made by the department. And those difficult decisions may include, and I say may because I don't think we're there yet, but may include temporary closure. And I want to be clear, I'm not talking about permanently shutting down a firehouse. That is not what this is about. But it may include temporary closure of a firehouse under the right conditions, if we feel comfortable that we're not jeopardizing the safety of the community in doing so. Because simply, there's no other way to limit these costs. And in my opinion, right now, they are out of control. So, I just want you to know that, this is something that's clearly, front and center for the board, something that we're thinking about, we're looking at, we're evaluating, and something that we're going to talk more about because, as the treasurer just mentioned, there's going to be further requests for significant amounts of money coming down the pike in the near future, and the board's going to need to decide, how we're going to handle it. So at that point, I'll open it up if anybody wants to make any additional comments or.
I think,
Let's let the board speak, and then Steve, you get an opportunity.
I'll disagree with one thing. I think the 60-year-old guys are actually on our lower numbers for people who that group doesn't miss much time. and they have to retire by 65. But I think the chairman is, it's a long-winded way of saying is, the transfers are just not an automatic thing that the board's going to do. Each time we have to hit one of these transfers to move money into the budget account into the line item for overtime, and it's going to take deliberation to do that. I think that's the bottom line of that conversation.
I, as a fire commissioner, would definitely like to see, and hopefully, that the sick time gets pretty much brought down. I'm not in favor, and I don't like the idea of when we talk about closing down a firehouse. I was upside down when they took Engine 28 out of service, and that's been out of service quite a few years now, and that really got my goat. So I only hope that everybody sees what's going on, and this gets corrected before any of engines or ladder truck gets put out of service. That is not my cup of tea.
Okay. All right.
I think Stephen wanted to say something on that.
Steve, you want to wait until we have, yeah. All right. Move on now with the chief's report.
Thank you, Commissioner. The monthly activity report for June 2018. Alarm activity, 329 calls for the month, 10 fire calls, 176 EMS or rescue related. We gave mutual aid 5 times, 4 to Mount Vernon and once to Scarsdale Fire Department. As you were just discussing, June was a tough month for staffing as 4 members went out on long-term absences, joining 1 member already out on long-term absence since the end of May. On a good note, 1 member did return to full duty in June after being out on a long-term absence of approximately 1 year. As far as the staffing goes, I would just recommend to the board, you control the money, but this 14 members on a shift has been established approximately 20 years ago. I don't have the exact date. I believe that is the minimum that we should have. The commissioners have to make the decision on what they feel is fair funding, but we have to staff to protect what is in the district. We have a 300-bed hospital. We have a 5-story hotel being built out of wood. We have brand new construction on Midland Place that was just built also out of wood. So I would strongly support maintaining the 14 firefighters, just my opinion. Okay, I'll continue with my report. Vehicle maintenance continues through the use of outside vendors. We sold the 3 surplus vehicles on the AAR auction website. The 1979 GMC pickup truck sold for $7,800. The 2001 Chevy Suburban sold for $5,800. The 2000 Ford Crown Vic sold for $1,600 for a total of $15,200 for the 3 vehicles. Lisa has received payment from the company, and all 3 vehicles have been picked up by the buyers. Thank you to Lisa and Tim for coordinating with AAR Auctions, and Tim helped out removing all the radio equipment on the vehicles. The license plates were turned into the DMV, and they will be removed from our insurance policy shortly. Unfortunately, on July 3rd, 2018, Engine 27 and Car 2102 were involved in a motor vehicle accident with each other. Car 2102 was parked. Engine 27 was pulling up to an emergency call where a person was struck by a vehicle, and the chauffeur cut the corner a little too quick, and between the 2 vehicles, it's about $11,000 worth of damage. It's going to be a couple weeks. Car 2102 is going to be out of service. The insurance adjusters have come by. We've gotten estimates, so we just have to get approval by the insurance company to have the repair work done. And Tim Dalton's been very busy working on numerous repairs and painting projects. The fire prevention and code enforcement activities continue with numerous plan reviews and inspections. Captain Pinaval and firefighter Vitarello are in need of new computers. They're software, Municity software, and when they try to run the RMS computer programs, they are very slow and unresponsive. We had our computer consultant come in, and he made recommendations to upgrade their computers or buy new computers. They've already been upgraded with more memory, so they've maxed out the amount of memory they can have. He says it's not enough memory, so he put together a package with new monitors, computers, and software, additional software in the computers so that their programs will run properly. They're about $800 per computer. For Jamie or I to purchase them, we need approval to put it on the credit cards, so I would ask for permission to spend up to $2,000 because we want to get a battery UPS for them, to be able to put that on the fire district credit card. We actually got a cheaper price locally than we could get them on CDW on the state bid. So the local price was actually lower than the state bid price. So that's why we have to do it on the credit card. They won't allow us to buy it with a purchase order. So I ask for permission to do that. I'll leave that up to the commissioners to decide. Bronxville Station 3 retaining wall is in need of repair. We looked at a survey that we had, and the property line is pretty much on our side of the wall. The way the neighbor explained it to us was that wall was installed when they leveled the property to put the firehouse in, and so I'm consider it our wall, unless we want to get a surveyor to do a more recent. The survey we have is from 1950 or 1948 or whenever the building was, when the firehouse was built up. But it does look, because the property is leveled at the firehouse side, and so you can see that wall was put up to level the property. The Career Fire Academy class graduates on Friday, July 13th. The 3 probationary firefighters will work 1 week on straight days to become familiar with our equipment, and then they'll be assigned to groups 1, 2, and 3 starting July 23rd, 24th, and when Group 1 works again. And in closing, I would request that the board closes the meeting with a moment of silence in honor of retired firefighter George Stewart Sr. He was badge number 38, and he passed away on June 26th. He was the father of firefighter Sean Stewart, our current firefighter. One of his sons passed away, Lieutenant Chip Stewart, and a son that no longer works with us, firefighter Kevin Stewart. George served the district from June 10th, 1949 until his retirement on March 1st, 1986, almost 37 years. So offer our condolences to his family.
Thank you. I just want to touch on one thing that the chief just mentioned about not wanting to drop below the 14. Next meeting, if you have any ideas to reduce the cost of the OT budget and maintain the staffing size, I'm all ears. The other thing that I will mention, because I think it's important, is that that is the staffing that we use in this town. But to be clear, there are many towns, fire departments, fire districts throughout the state of New York with similar sized populations that is a routine matter of course do not staff with the staffing that we have. They have less. One example is the city of Poughkeepsie, which also has a hospital, a much larger hospital than we have here in Bronxville. Also has 2 colleges, Vassar College, Marist College. So it is being done. I mean, this isn't a race to the lowest to see who can, provide fire protection with fewer people. I certainly would never want to reduce the manning unless we had to. But again, I'm going to reiterate, at some point, something's got to give. We just can't go back to the well and ask taxpayers to fund such large additional incremental amounts, especially when that level of fire protection in terms of manpower in similar sized, districts it's being handled with fewer men. So, but again, Chief, if you've got ideas, please share them with us at the next meeting, because
We do have the 3 probationary firefighters that will, in less than 2 weeks, they'll be on the line, so that's going to reduce 3 overtimes per, every 4 days, because this time of year, there's 2 people on vacation and a float day, so that's going to eliminate one of the overtimes in those 3 groups.
That doesn't get rid of, the issue is not, we already know there's overtime built in because we're running short, and then we didn't hire these guys to fill the positions. I'm talking about the overtime created by our incidents of sick calls. And that's what I want to reduce. The board knew full well, we took money out of our budget and said, okay, we're moving money into the overtime budget because we didn't put it in the salary line item because we didn't hire these firefighters. So to me, that's not real, like it's just the money's appearing in one place instead of appearing in the other. The real overtime numbers are because of these sick rates. The percentage by which the number of shifts that we have scheduled a firefighter calls in and says, I can't make it because I have an injury, a sickness, and it's not related to an injury or a sickness that they, received while in the line of duty. And so that's the number that we're trying to bring down here. And, the other thing I want to mention, because I think it's important, and you raise this, we overstaff. The department actually has more firefighters scheduled than what we need to maintain that 14-member,
We have no minimum manning.
we have no minimum manning, but we carry, additional firefighters to help cover vacations, for example, in the summer when we have multiple guys on vacation at the same time. But these guys are available in case someone calls in sick to cover that position without generating overtime. And while the benefit of that ebbs and flows in terms of the total man hours we have available on any given day, depends on a lot of factors. On average, over the course of the year, we have 3 full-time positions more than we need to staff. And so, in my opinion, the overtime budget, really should somehow reflect the fact that we're already paying 3 guys, to cover sick calls already that are part of the salary line item. So, I don't know if I did a good job of explaining that, but, like I said, the numbers that we want to reduce are the overtime cost being caused by non-line of duty sick calls, which again, on a percentage basis, I believe are, just, way beyond what's experienced in other departments. Okay.
Chief, you had a thing on here buying computers.
Yes.
Do you buy those at, you just don't call Dell and buy them from Dell anymore, or do you buy them from, Staples or something?
So because it's under $2,000, we're required to get 2 written quotes. That CDWG, the government CDW site, has a lot of their computers on state bid. So our computer consultant looked on what they had. He picked out what size memory and display for Captain Pinaval, and then he got a quote on the state bid. So, that would be all we need, but he found a more competitive price locally at Micro Center, and so it's,
But are they like Dell machines, or what are they?
it's a Dell, yeah.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
fine. So they're standard
Dell
machines.
monitor, Dell machine, and
Oh,
he's
good.
putting in an extra, I think, 16 gig of memory in them.
Let the chief buy those?
So, just asking for permission to use a credit card. I have to get pre-approval.
We're fine with that, go ahead.
Okay.
And can we have the chief order some plaques for the retired members?
Yeah, I spoke to Lisa about that today. She was kind of going to coordinate. I was going to put her in touch with the guy that I dealt with.
What plaques are we buying?
Retired members.
Who retired?
You had 3 guys in the last year.
Firefighter Conlon, firefighter Esposito, just in the last.
Okay, I just inquired who we buying them for.
Okay,
Do we need a motion for the chief to purchase those?
No, it's small dollars. I just
Okay,
wanted to-
I'm just asking, that's all I'm doing is asking.
we're working on it. Okay, payment of bills. The board has reviewed the bills and warrants and makes a motion to pay them. There are 3 sets of warrants. First set of warrant dated 6/25/18, totaling $571,709.92. Second set of warrants dated July 10th, 2018, totaling $68,658.68. And a credit card bill dated 7/18/2018, the amount of $1,363.08. I will make the motion to pay those bills. Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, I'll poll the board. Commissioner Rabin?
Aye.
Commissioner Laurie?
Aye.
I am an aye. Commissioner Winter?
Aye.
Commissioner Roach?
Aye.
Motion carries. Bills are paid. Approval of minutes. Secretary Gutierrez has prepared the minutes, actually, now that I think about it. You
see
did?
'em.
Yeah, we didn't, never mind. We're going to do that next week. We didn't circulate those. Chester Heights, just a quick update. We've had some issues just submitting the proper information we needed to submit for scaffolding for our renovation project there. I believe today we finalized everything. Should have a building permit in hand tomorrow. The company that we hired to do the work has actually been on site doing some stuff that doesn't require scaffolding, but that project is now going to get going in earnest this week. So that's the status of that. Discussion of open firefighter positions. As I mentioned earlier, we currently have 2 open positions for probationary firefighter. We would like to fill those slots in time to send those candidates to the next training class in the county, which begins on September 17th. We expect to have up to 12 candidates who will be eligible for the positions, meaning that they scored high enough on the exams, they've expressed interest in becoming firefighters, and they've taken and passed the physical aptitude test, which is scheduled for early August. Given the timing of all this, the game plan is that the board is going to meet on August 13th to conduct interviews with those candidates, starting in the early evening. I think it's probably going to start sometime around 5 o'clock, but we'll figure that out. It's going to be a special meeting just for interviews. There's going to be no public session. We will be meeting the next day for our regularly scheduled meeting in August, and at that point, we'll probably share the names of the candidates that we select to fill those positions. All right. Polling locations, just a heads up, we do expect that after the exterior work is done in Chester Heights, we're going to segue into the interior work. We've asked for a proposal from the A&E firm who helped us with the outside. We hope to have that in the coming weeks. And at that point, if it's satisfactory to the board, they'll move forward with plans for that project. If that does happen, and we do start work on that building this fall, it's going to be out of commission. For the interior work, the building will have to be closed, so that will not be an available polling location for the December election. So the game plan right now is that anyone who did vote at Chester Heights will vote at Eastchester Town Hall.
We should mention on that, the election, every year there's a fire district election for one fire commissioner. This year, the election is December 11th, a Tuesday, always the second Tuesday of December. If anybody's interested, it's a 5-year time frame. It's a 5-year term, and you get 25 signatures, and you get a petition from the fire district secretary, and you get your name on the ballot. And so that all happens around Thanksgiving. So usually it's the Wednesday before Thanksgiving weekend is when you have to have your ballot in. And so if anybody's interested in running for fire commissioner, it's the election Tuesday, December 11th, and the ballots usually have to be in sometime around Thanksgiving.
Commissioner Hinklen, and now that we're on that, I've had a few people tell me, one man told me his mother's very sick and he can't get her out, but she would like to vote on an absentee ballot. I know for some reason along the line, they stopped that. And I know a couple other people that are going to be out of the country at that time, and they said that they're getting their vote denied. Why can't we have an absentee ballot like any other citizen uses on any general election or village election?
Well, it's a good question. Unfortunately, I do not know the answer. I'd have to find out.
We just have to approve that and take.
I mean,
on the
I
cost.
used to get
We
it.
would be permitted to do that.
For fire district elections?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I used to
we
get
would pay for
an absentee ballot when I was in the service. So all of a sudden, it's been stopped. Why, I don't know, but I think we should reiterate
I think
that.
there was a lot of problems with the absentee ballots back in there was problems with them, and that's why they were stopped.
What problems was the problem of having an absentee ballot?
Because we don't have a large administrative staff, and somebody has to go by, pick up the ballot, bring it in, and,
I don't think that's a problem.
okay, well,
We may
I've
have
seen a
way
lot
to
of,
Utilize that now that we have 2 wonderful people working in our office.
well,
I think we might be able to do that. It's something worth a larger discussion. I
Oh,
mean,
it's worth a
only-
larger
it's only
discussion.
July, so.
but in order to use an absentee ballot legally in the fire district election, you have to be outside the county the day of the election.
I just told
Unless
you,
you're-
I got some people that said that they're gonna be out of the country in December. So that's out of the county when they're out of the country.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying that.
And you got some people that
Okay.
wanted, just a minute, Dennis, I'm just trying to say, got some people, a man has an invalid mother that she still likes to vote, but it's a big problem to get her out in a wheelchair, put her in a car, he's got to bring an aide with her and all that, and the man feels that an absentee ballot is very good for her.
Well, absentee ballot's a wonderful thing to have,
Okay,
but the problem I've seen with the absentee ballots, I've seen people walk into the Tuckahoe Senior Citizen Center, put their hand up, pass out the absentee ballots, and collect 30 of them in one spot in about a 15-minute time frame.
you were there when that happened?
And I
Well,
watched
those
it
aren't
happen.
absentee, right? Those are when there's an issue with the voter roll
Yeah,
and they're not on.
that's not
an
absentee.
I think an
I'm just
absentee
telling
ballot,
you
though.
what I've
I mean,
witnessed.
Lisa should be able to just reach out to the Board of Elections and find out the ins
An
and
abs-
outs on what we can
an-
do.
an
And then just give us a report back in August.
An
Let us-
absentee ballot, you have to
over that.
sign for that, and it's not that where you raise your hand and you're gonna get an absentee ballot.
Okay.
You have to sign for that.
Okay. You guys should look up New York State town law. It's right in New York State town law for fire districts. You don't need to go to the Board of Election. You can read it right in New York State town law for fire district elections. It's probably somewhere around section 176.
Well, I guess you know where it is because you told everybody,
I
so.
know where it is.
All right, so then tell us why you can't get an absentee ballot.
You can if the board authorizes.
Okay, so now so we can, okay.
That's it, we
Why-
can.
Lisa, why don't we have you just reach out to the Board of Elections when the time's right and see whether or not that process is something we can do, and the board will deliberate on it. We'll
Absolutely.
Just get over this topic and
I
move
would,
on.
listen, I want to give it some more thought. I kind of like the idea, but I just want to make sure that it can't be abused. And, so we'll
I don't think that's abused. I mean, an absentee ballot, you have to request for it in writing, you have to sign for it, and before you receive it. I used to get absentee ballot when I was in the service.
No, I understand, and I've used absentee ballots to vote myself in the
Yeah.
past, but again, I want to, think it through a little bit more, because
Okay.
you're probably right, but I just want to make sure that there's that it can't be gamed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so that's-
I agree
that's
with
all.
you there,
We
absolutely.
have time.
Okay, all right, but that's a good point. Ethics panel, we've discussed this, we've, started to make some progress. Everybody who's been following is aware that we adopted a new code of ethics 2 meetings ago. A code of ethics calls for the establishment of an ethics panel. The plan was, or we actually voted to make the deputy chair a member of that panel. That's Commissioner Rabin. We also mentioned that we were going to look for a separate counsel, apart from our current general counsel, to serve as ethics counsel. Our current counsel feels that it potentially is a conflict for them to serve as ethics counsel as well as general counsel, because sometimes there are issues of they serve the entire board, and they don't want to have to get into situations where if one board member basically questions an ethical decision of another, they're pitting one against the other. So we understand the decision, but basically it's led us to kind of explore relationships with a few different firms. We have identified a firm that we think can assist us. That firm, if we do reach an agreement with them, would work very closely with Commissioner Rabin to establish the protocols, the methods for how the panel is established, how it's accessed, how the opinions are rendered, that kind of thing. And we'll have more to say about that at the next meeting. But suffice to say, I think we've reached consensus on who we'd like to have do it, and now it's a matter of contacting that person and trying to work out the details. Anybody want to add anything to that?
Just, we're still accepting credentials and personal information from anybody in the village of Tuckahoe, village of Bronxville, the town of Eastchester who would be interested in being considered to join that panel. You can email your resume to us at commissioners@eastchesterfd.com, or if you feel it's more appropriate, you can certainly mail it by U.S. Postal Service to the 255 Main Street address, and our office will pick it up and then disperse it to all of us. And that's it. And we will probably be doing more of a push to promote this option for residents to join the panel over the next month or so, whether online, in periodicals around town, or other stuff like that. But in the meantime, you can still certainly feel free to submit your credentials to us directly.
Okay, that's all I had on the
Couple
agenda.
of things I just want to let the board know.
Absolutely.
On July 2nd, we attended the Mamaroneck Day Parade. Our thanks to the board and the chief extending us an engine, and to firefighter Bill Wiggerman for driving the engine. I drove the maintenance truck. We are closing the meeting in honor of George Stewart Sr. I also attended the Chester Heights picnic on Sunday, and they asked me to express their thanks to the board for their cooperation in using electricity and the facilities in the Chester Heights thing. And as far as Vinnie Spadaro, I was talking with the chief, and we decided that as soon as we get the tree, we're going to put it at the volunteer monument. And Jamie told us we have some money that was donated from different citizens of the community, and the chief is going to look into a plaque, and I'm going to plant it at the monument there, and we'll have a dedicated services on May of next year when we have our memorial service there, and the tree will be planted. As soon as Mrs. Spadaro told me, she inquired through the funeral parlor, and the funeral parlor is going to give it to her as soon as they receive it next week or two. And Chief, you are going to take care of the plaque, right? And the money, Jamie has it.
We'll coordinate, yep.
Okay. And that's all I got, Commissioner.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else on the board have anything they'd like to discuss?
It's section 175B on the absentee ballots. So it's close.
Okay, open it up to public comments. 916?
Just to speak about the sick policy. As union president, I don't tolerate abuse of sick time. You can look at my own absentee record, which you'd understand. If sick time is being abused, go after the abuser. As far as I know, all the members are complying with the sick policy, and if they're not, deal with them individually. With that, if you're discussing going down staffing or taking something out of service, remember Kensington just opened up recently, Main Street in Tuckahoe, Crestwood, you have Jackson Avenue opening up soon, and the hotel. We've grown, we haven't gotten smaller. We've just been lucky that nothing's happened in this town. And if you do want to take companies out of business, I hope you spread the wealth. Do not continue to just make the North End take the brunt of it. Close down Bronxville, close down Chester Heights, close down Waverly. Spread the wealth, spread the risk throughout the community rather than taking it out on the North End.
Okay. Listen, in case I wasn't clear before, I'll be clear now. We certainly do not want to do that, and I'm hoping that we avoid it. I'm hoping that it doesn't happen. But at some point, you know, if these numbers continue to build, and I think, you know, I don't want to speak on behalf of the board, they could speak for themselves, but I would only advocate doing it if I felt we could do it safely. And as I mentioned earlier, I think the experience of other similar-sized fire departments, to me, suggests that they feel they can provide that service, ones that have, you know, similar, you know, not just populations, but, you know, buildings and hospitals and apartment building, you know, the makeup of the community is similar in many ways. So, you know, I would also mention to viewers, well, there's no viewers because we're not being taped tonight, but, you know, we are members of the mutual aid system.
Excuse me.
And,
We're being taped.
Tonight. There's a
Oh, we
gentleman
are?
back there.
oh, sorry. We are members of the mutual aid system, and, you know, while you never want to rely on mutual aid, you know, as to protect your own, fire district. Certainly, we are a net provider of mutual aid. We provide it more often than we get it. And if on a Tuesday evening, in very good weather, when there is nothing anticipated that might increase the risk profile of the district, we thought we could safely shut down or temporarily close a firehouse from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. the next morning. We may have to consider that. And again, it's not something, the board definitely doesn't want to do it, not something we take lightly. But it just can't, these numbers can't continue to go up and up and up. At some point, something's got to give.
Yeah, but we haven't had fires.
Anybody else have any comments? Okay.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Okay. I'll second that. All right, everybody's in favor? So we'll close the meeting tonight in memory of George Stewart Sr. Thank you.